The sunlight glittered across the hotel pool that afternoon, turning the water into a sheet of blue glass, but nobody noticed the young waitress standing at the edge with tears in her eyes. 1 second, she was carrying a silver tray filled with expensive drinks. The next, a wealthy guest deliberately shoved her into the pool, and the entire crowd erupted in laughter. What happened afterward, however, made the laughter disappear so quickly that you could hear the sound of the water dripping from her uniform. Because among the guests was a millionaire who had been watching everything in silence. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, dignity, and second chances can change someone's life, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. You never know whose life might be touched by a story like this. Her name was Maribel Voss, a 24-year-old waitress who had learned early that life did not always give people a fair beginning. She worked at the luxurious Solmere Hotel during the day and spent her evenings caring for her elderly grandmother, who had raised her after Maribel lost her parents as a child. Every morning, she arrived before sunrise, carefully tying her uniform and hiding the exhaustion beneath a polite smile. She wasn't ashamed of her job. She was proud of it. Every paycheck helped keep a roof over their heads and paid for her grandmother's medicine. That Saturday afternoon, the hotel was hosting a private celebration beside the pool. The guests wore designer clothes, expensive watches, and sunglasses that probably cost more than Maribel earned in several months. She moved between the tables quietly, serving food and drinks while trying not to disturb anyone. Among the guests was a young businessman named Roderick Vale, the spoiled son of one of the hotel's biggest clients. From the moment he arrived, he treated the staff as if they were invisible. He snapped his fingers at Maribel, complained about the temperature of his drink, and laughed when she apologized for a tiny delay caused by another customer. Maribel swallowed every insult because she needed her job. Then Roderick noticed that several guests were watching him. With a grin, he picked up his glass and stepped toward her. He made a cruel joke about how someone wearing a cheap uniform shouldn't be allowed near people like them. A few guests laughed nervously. Maribel lowered her eyes and tried to walk away, but Roderick stepped behind her. Before she could understand what was happening, he pushed her hard. She fell straight into the pool. The tray flew from her hands. Glasses shattered against the pavement. Cold water swallowed her, soaking her uniform and destroying the small dignity she had fought all day to maintain. When she surfaced, she heard laughter. Not one person came forward. For a few heartbreaking seconds, Maribel simply stood there in the shallow water, trembling. She wasn't crying because she was wet. She was crying because everyone had seen what happened and nobody seemed to care. Then a man's voice cut through the crowd. He wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. He simply told everyone to stop. The crowd turned. Walking toward the pool was Cassian Mercer, a quiet millionaire known for investing in hotels, restaurants, and small businesses. Most people at the party recognized him immediately. More importantly, the hotel's general manager recognized him. Cassian was not merely a wealthy guest. He was the anonymous investor who owned a controlling share in the hotel. He looked at Maribel first, not at Roderick. He took off his expensive jacket and placed it around her shoulders. Then he asked if she was hurt. Maribel shook her head, unable to speak. Cassian turned toward the crowd. He said that money could buy a beautiful room, an expensive car, and a table at the finest restaurant in the city, but it could never buy character. The people who had laughed suddenly became silent. Roderick tried to defend himself, insisting that it had only been a joke. Cassian looked at him and calmly explained that humiliating someone who couldn't fight back wasn't a joke. It was a choice. Then came the moment nobody expected. Cassian asked the hotel manager whether Maribel had been treated fairly by the company. The manager hesitated. Cassian already knew the answer. He had spent the previous week secretly observing the hotel staff and had noticed how hard Maribel worked. He had also seen that she was often the first employee to arrive and the last to leave. Cassian announced that Roderick was no longer welcome at the hotel, regardless of his family's money. Then he told Maribel something that left her speechless. He offered her a promotion. Not because he felt sorry for her, but because he had watched her work and believed she deserved an opportunity. Maribel was offered a position in the hotel's guest relations department, with better pay, regular hours, and training in hotel management. She stood there wrapped in Cassian's jacket, tears running down her cheeks. She quietly admitted that she had never imagined someone would notice her effort. Cassian smiled and told her that hard-working people were often noticed last, but that didn't mean their work was invisible. Months passed. Maribel flourished in her new position. She took courses, learned management, and eventually became one of the most respected employees at the hotel. Her grandmother received the care she needed, and for the first time in years, Maribel could look toward the future without fear. But the most beautiful change wasn't her promotion. It was what she did with her success. Whenever a new employee joined the hotel, Maribel personally welcomed them. She remembered exactly what it felt like to be invisible. She made sure nobody under her supervision ever felt that way. One sunny afternoon, almost a year after the pool incident, Maribel stood beside that same pool wearing a professional suit instead of a soaked waitress uniform. She was now preparing to lead an important hotel event. She looked across the water and remembered the girl who had once stood there humiliated and alone. She realized that the day she thought had broken her had actually been the beginning of her life changing forever. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes the world will laugh when you fall, but one act of kindness can remind you that your worth was never determined by the people who refuse to see it. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and leave a comment. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who may need a little hope today. And before you leave, I have one special request: commit to being the person who steps forward when everyone else is laughing. You may never know how much one kind action means to someone standing alone. Maribel never forgot the pool that day. But she also never forgot the man who stepped forward when everyone else stepped back. And from that moment on, she made a promise to herself: whenever someone else was pushed down by life, she would be the one who reached out a hand.